The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, ordinary in every way, except for the subject line that would change my life. You're invited. Catalyst Industries Annual Innovation Gala. I stared at my computer screen in the cramped cubicle I'd occupied for 3 years at Catalyst Industries' Chicago headquarters, reading the message 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Dear Ms. Johnson, you have been selected to attend this year's Innovation Gala as recognition of your outstanding contributions to the Data Analytics Department. The event will take place on Saturday, November 18th at the Palmer House Hilton. Formal attire required. We look forward to celebrating with you. Regards, Human Resources. My hands trembled slightly as I clicked the attachment. A formal invitation embossed with the company logo. My name printed in elegant script. Ms. Kendra Johnson. Well, look who got invited to the big show. I looked up to find my boss, Patricia Whitmore, standing at my cubicle entrance. She was a white woman in her early 50s, always immaculately dressed in designer suits, her blonde hair styled in that expensive way that said, "I vacation in the Hamptons." She'd made my life difficult since day one, undermining my work, taking credit for my ideas, and making subtle, and sometimes not so subtle comments about my appearance, my background, my everything. Yes, I just saw the email, I said carefully. Patricia had a talent for turning good news into something toxic. She leaned against the cubicle wall, examining her perfectly manicured nails. I'm surprised they're inviting junior analysts. The gala is usually reserved for management and senior staff. Must be some diversity quota they're trying to fill. The words stung, as they were meant to. I was 32 years old, had a master's degree in data science from Northwestern, and had single-handedly developed an algorithm that saved Catalyst Industries $2.3 million last year. But to Patricia, I was just a diversity hire. Well, I'm looking forward to it, I said, keeping my voice neutral. You know it's black tie formal, right? Very upscale. The kind of event where people notice if you don't fit in. She gave my outfit a pointed look, a simple navy pantsuit from Target, professional but obviously off the rack. After she walked away, my colleague Jenna leaned over from the neighboring cubicle. Jenna was a Korean-American woman about my age, one of the few people in the department who didn't treat me like I was invisible. Don't let her get to you, Jenna whispered. You earned that invitation. Your work on the predictive analytics project was brilliant. Thanks, I said, but Patricia's words had already planted seeds of doubt. That evening, I sat in my studio apartment in Pilsen, looking at my closet and feeling anxiety creep up my spine. The gala was in 2 weeks. Formal attire required. I pulled out my phone and Googled formal gown Chicago. The results made my stomach drop. Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, boutiques in River North, dresses starting at $500 and climbing into the thousands. I opened my banking app. Checking account, $847. Savings account, $234. That savings was supposed to be untouchable. My emergency fund, built painstakingly over 3 years of living paycheck to paycheck, sending money home to my mother in Atlanta, paying off student loans that felt infinite. I couldn't spend hundreds of dollars on a dress I'd wear once. I just couldn't. Over the next few days, I hit every thrift store in Chicago. I scoured consignment shops in Wicker Park, vintage stores in Logan Square, secondhand boutiques in Andersonville. I found dresses that were too small, too dated, too damaged. Nothing that said, I belong at a black tie gala with millionaire executives. With 1 week to go, desperation set in. That's when I remembered the dollar store on 18th Street, near my apartment. I'd walked past it hundreds of times, never imagining it sold anything beyond cleaning supplies and snacks. But I'd heard somewhere that dollar stores sometimes carried unexpected items. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the aisles crowded with everything from toys to toiletries. I wandered toward the back, where a small section held clothing, mostly basics, nothing fancy. Then I saw it. Hanging on a rack between a polyester blouse and a child's Halloween costume was a black dress. Floor-length, simple silhouette, with long sleeves and a modest neckline. The fabric was some synthetic blend, but it had a subtle sheen that caught the light. The tag said $15. $15. I pulled it off the rack, holding it up. It was surprisingly well made for a dollar store find. No visible defects, seams intact. It wouldn't fool anyone into thinking it was designer, but it was dignified. Elegant even, in its simplicity. I bought it, along with a pair of black flats for $8, some simple jewelry for $3, and walked out having spent less than $30. At home, I tried everything on. The dress fit perfectly, skimming my curves without being too tight, the length just right with the flats. I pinned my natural hair, thick, beautiful coils I'd learned to love despite Patricia's comments about professional appearance, into an elegant updo. I kept my makeup simple. Mascara, lipstick, a bit of highlighter on my brown skin. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a beautiful, professional woman. Not a CEO's wife, maybe, not dripping in diamonds but dignified and put together. It would have to be enough. The night of the gala arrived with unseasonably warm November weather. I took the L downtown, my dress carefully covered by my winter coat, my flats in a tote bag, feeling both excited and terrified. The Palmer House Hilton was magnificent, a historic landmark with gilded ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and marble floors that echoed with the footsteps of Chicago's elite. I checked my coat and changed into my flats in the bathroom, then followed the signs to the grand ballroom. The doors opened onto a scene from a movie. Hundreds of people in tuxedos and gowns, champagne flowing, a live orchestra playing, tables adorned with elaborate floral arrangements. The women wore dresses I recognized from magazines. Vera Wang, Oscar de la Renta, Marchesa. Jewels sparkled at throats and wrists. The men wore custom tuxedos with expensive watches glinting under the chandeliers. And then there was me, in my $15 store dress. I found my table, number 47, near the back, and sat down, trying to make myself small. The other seats filled with people I didn't recognize, mid-level managers from different departments. We made polite small talk. Then I heard laughter, sharp and unmistakable. Patricia had arrived with a group of senior managers, and she was holding court near the bar, wearing a stunning emerald green gown that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was pointing in my direction, saying something to her companions, and they were all laughing. My face burned. I knew exactly what she was saying. One of the women in Patricia's group, a senior VP named Carol Schneider, actually walked over to my table, her expression a mix of pity and amusement. "Kendra, right?" she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "That's such an interesting dress, very minimalist. Where's it from?" The question was a trap. I could lie, but that felt worse than the truth. "It's from a dollar store," I said quietly. Carol's eyebrows shot up. "A dollar store? You wore a dollar store dress to the Innovation Gala?" She wasn't even trying to hide her shock. Patricia had moved closer, clearly enjoying the moment. "Well, we can't all afford designer gowns, Carol. Some people work within their means." Her tone suggested working within your means was something shameful. "It's actually quite pretty," someone said. I turned to see an older black woman sitting 2 seats away, wearing a simple but elegant navy dress and pearls. Sometimes the most beautiful things are the simplest. "I'm Diane, from accounting." "Thank you," I managed, grateful for the kindness. But the damage was done. Patricia and her circle had moved away, still laughing, and I could feel eyes on me from other tables. The woman in the dollar store dress. The one who didn't belong. I considered leaving. Just standing up, getting my coat, going home, and pretending this night never happened. Instead, I stayed. I'd earned this invitation, damn it. I'd worked harder than half the people in this room. I wouldn't let Patricia drive me out. Dinner was served. Some elaborate chicken dish I barely tasted, too aware of my own humiliation to enjoy anything. There were speeches from various executives, awards presented for excellence and innovation, all the corporate pageantry that felt hollow and distant. Then the CEO took the stage. Marcus Thornton was a black man in his late 50s, a Chicago native who'd built Catalyst Industries from a small tech startup into a Fortune 500 company. He was known for being brilliant but accessible, tough but fair. I'd never met him personally. CEOs didn't typically interact with junior analysts. "Tonight," he said, his voice carrying across the ballroom, "we're celebrating innovation. But true innovation isn't just about technology or algorithms. It's about people who see problems differently, who aren't afraid to challenge assumptions, who bring fresh perspectives to old challenges." I half listened, focused on getting through the evening and escaping with whatever dignity I had left. "This year we're introducing a new award," Thornton continued. "The Catalyst Award for Transformative Innovation. This recognition goes to an employee whose work has fundamentally changed how we operate, saved the company significant resources, and demonstrated the kind of creative problem-solving we value most." Polite applause rippled through the ballroom. The inaugural recipient of this award developed a predictive analytics algorithm that identified inefficiencies in our supply chain, resulting in $2.3 million in savings and improved delivery times by 23%. Her work was conducted independently, on her own initiative, and represents the best of what Catalyst Industries stands for. Wait, my algorithm. He was talking about my algorithm. Please join me in congratulating this year's Catalyst Award winner, Ms. Kendra Johnson. The room exploded in applause, but I sat frozen, unable to process what I'd just heard. My name. He'd called my name. "Kendra." Diane touched my arm gently. "That's you. Go up there." I stood on shaking legs, aware of every eye in the ballroom watching me walk toward the stage. I passed Patricia's table and saw her face. Shock, disbelief, fury. Carol Schneider looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Marcus Thornton met me at the stairs, helping me up to the stage with a warm smile. "Congratulations, Kendra." Up close, he was even more imposing, tall, with silver hair and kind eyes that suggested he missed nothing. He handed me a crystal award engraved with my name and the company logo, then turned back to the microphone. "I want to say something about Ms. Johnson's work," he continued, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder, a gesture of support. "When her direct supervisor submitted the department's quarterly report, this algorithm wasn't mentioned. In fact, I learned about it from our CFO, who noticed the supply chain savings and traced them back to Kendra's code." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Patricia was staring at her plate, her face red. "This raises an important question," Thornton said, his voice taking on an edge. "How many other brilliant contributions are being overlooked? How many talented employees are doing transformative work that their supervisors aren't recognizing or supporting?" The ballroom had gone very quiet. "So tonight, Kendra, we're not just celebrating your algorithm. We're celebrating you, your initiative, your talent, and your perseverance in an environment that clearly wasn't giving you the recognition you deserved." He turned to me. "Would you like to say a few words?" Would I? I was terrified. But I also had a microphone, a platform, and nothing left to lose. I stepped forward, gripping the award like a lifeline. "Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Thank you to everyone at Catalyst Industries." My voice shook, but I kept going. "I'll be honest, I almost didn't come tonight. When I got the invitation, my first thought was that I couldn't afford the right dress, that I wouldn't fit in, that people like me don't belong at events like this." I gestured to my dress, and scattered laughter rippled through the crowd. But it was different now, sympathetic rather than mocking. This dress cost $15 from a dollar store. Earlier tonight, someone laughed at it. And you know what? I was ashamed. I felt like I didn't deserve to be here. Like I'd somehow failed by not having the right clothes, the right background, the right connections. I paused, gathering courage. But then I remembered something my mother told me growing up in Atlanta. She worked 3 jobs to put me through college, and she always said, "Baby, it's not the dress that makes you valuable. It's what you bring to the room." Applause started, scattered at first, then building. What I bring is my mind, my work ethic, and my refusal to give up even when people try to make me feel small. This algorithm represents hundreds of hours of work I did because I saw a problem and wanted to solve it, not because anyone asked me to, and certainly not because anyone encouraged me. I looked directly at Patricia, who couldn't meet my eyes. To anyone in this room who's ever felt like they don't belong, who's been overlooked or dismissed or made to feel less than, your work matters. Your contributions matter. You matter. And you don't need an expensive dress to prove it. The ballroom erupted. People were on their feet, applauding, and I saw tears in some eyes. Other women, other people of color, people who understood exactly what I was talking about. Marcus Thornton was beaming. "Ladies and gentlemen, Kendra Johnson, Catalyst Award winner and future star of this company." As I walked off the stage, award in hand, the room had transformed. People I'd never met were approaching me, congratulating me, asking about my work. Senior executives were introducing themselves, handing me business cards, talking about opportunities. And Patricia? She'd disappeared from her table entirely. But I wasn't thinking about Patricia anymore. I was thinking about the little girl from Atlanta, who'd dreamed of making something of herself, who'd worked so hard for so long to prove she belonged. Tonight, in a $15 dress, I'd finally proven it. The Monday morning after the gala, I arrived at the office expecting something. I wasn't sure what. Acknowledgement, hostility, business as usual. What I got was silence. Patricia wasn't at her desk when I arrived at 8:30. Her office door was closed, lights off. Unusual. She was typically the first one in, using early arrival as yet another way to assert dominance. Jenna appeared at my cubicle before I'd even logged into my computer, her eyes wide with excitement. "Kendra! Oh my God, I saw the video!" "What video?" She pulled out her phone, showing me a clip that had been posted to Catalyst Industries' LinkedIn page. It was me, on stage, giving my speech about the dollar store dress. The video had 47,000 views and hundreds of comments. I scrolled through them, my heart racing. This is what real leadership looks like. Finally, someone speaking truth about corporate culture. I cried watching this. As a young black woman in tech, I needed to hear this. Catalyst Industries is lucky to have her. But there were also negative comments. "She's making everything about race and class, so divisive. Complaining about a dress at a company event? Unprofessional. If she can't afford proper attire, maybe she's not ready for that level." "Don't read those," Jenna said, pulling the phone away. "Focus on the positive. You're inspiring people." At 10 a.m., I received an email requesting my presence in Marcus Thornton's office at 2 p.m. No context, just the summons. My stomach dropped. Had I been too honest? Too critical? Was I about to be fired for embarrassing the company? I spent the morning unable to concentrate, running through every possible scenario. By 1:45, I was a nervous wreck. The executive floor was a different world from my cubicle. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive art, hushed conversations, the smell of good coffee rather than the burnt brew from our department's ancient machine. Marcus Thornton's assistant, a friendly middle-aged woman named Gloria, greeted me warmly. "Ms. Johnson, Mr. Thornton is expecting you. Go right in." His office was enormous, with a view of Lake Michigan that made me momentarily forget my anxiety. Thornton stood from behind his desk, gesturing to a sitting area with comfortable chairs. "Kendra, thank you for coming. Please sit. Can Gloria get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." I perched on the edge of a leather chair, trying to read his expression. He settled across from me, his demeanor casual despite the formality of the setting. "I wanted to meet with you personally to discuss what happened at the gala. Your speech has gotten significant attention, internally and externally. I hope I didn't create problems for the company, I said carefully. Problems? He laughed. Kendra, our stock price went up 2 points this morning. Our social media engagement is through the roof. HR has received 300 job applications since Saturday night, many specifically mentioning your speech as inspiration. You've done more for our employer brand in 3 minutes than our entire marketing department has done in a year. Relief flooded through me. I'm glad I didn't cause any harm. Harm? No. But you did shine a very bright light on some issues we need to address. His expression grew serious. Your supervisor, Patricia Whitmore, has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. I blinked, surprised. An investigation? After your speech, several other employees came forward with complaints about her management style. Apparently, you're not the only person she's undermined or treated poorly. The specific allegations include taking credit for subordinates' work, discriminatory comments, and creating a hostile work environment. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part felt oddly guilty, like I'd betrayed Patricia despite everything she'd done to me. I also reviewed the data analytics department's quarterly reports for the past 3 years, Thornton continued. Do you know how many of your projects were attributed to Patricia in those reports? No. 17. 17 projects you designed, coded, and implemented, all credited to her as department head, with no mention of your specific contribution. The supply chain algorithm wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. The number shocked me. 17 projects. 3 years of work, systematically erased. What happens now? I asked. Now, we have options to discuss. First, I'd like to offer you a promotion. Senior data analyst, with a 40% salary increase and your own team. You'd report directly to the VP of Analytics rather than a department manager. 40%. I did quick mental math. That would transform my financial situation, allow me to actually save money, maybe even help my mother more. That's incredibly generous, I said. It's overdue, Thornton corrected. You should have been promoted a year ago based on your performance. Second option, we've been developing a new initiative called the Office of Innovation. It would be a think tank within the company, identifying inefficiencies, developing new solutions, working across departments. I'd like you to consider heading it. Heading it? As in, being the director? Exactly. It would be a significant jump, effectively an executive role. You'd have budget authority, hiring decisions, direct access to C-suite leadership. It's a big responsibility. My mind raced. From junior analyst to executive in one conversation, it felt surreal. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. Take a week. Talk to people you trust. This is a major decision. He stood, extending his hand. Kendra, I want you to know something. When I started Catalyst Industries 30 years ago, I was a kid from the South Side with a computer science degree and a lot of ambition. People told me I didn't belong, that tech wasn't for people who looked like me. Your speech reminded me why I built this company, to create opportunities for talented people regardless of their background. I shook his hand, feeling tears prick my eyes. Thank you for seeing my work. Thank you for doing work worth seeing. I left his office walking on air, my mind spinning with possibilities. The elevator ride down to my floor felt like descending from one world into another. Back at my cubicle, I found a note on my desk. Come see me when you get back. Patricia. So she'd returned from wherever she'd been. I walked to her office, my newfound confidence providing armor I'd never had before. She was at her desk, looking haggard, her usual impeccable appearance slightly disheveled. Close the door, she said without preamble. I did, remaining standing. I wanted to talk to you before... She paused, choosing her words carefully. I've been asked to resign. The official story will be that I'm pursuing other opportunities, but we both know what's really happening. I'm sorry, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. Are you? After what I did to you? I considered the question honestly. I'm sorry that it came to this. I'm not sorry that your behavior finally had consequences. Patricia laughed bitterly. You know what the worst part is? I told myself I was being tough, demanding, holding people accountable. I didn't realize I'd become exactly the kind of manager I hated when I was starting out. Why did you treat me that way? I asked, the question I'd wanted to ask for 3 years finally emerging. She was quiet for a long moment. Because you reminded me of myself 30 years ago. Hungry, talented, willing to work harder than everyone else. And She paused, struggling. I'd convinced myself that I succeeded because I was exceptional, despite the obstacles. Seeing you made me face the fact that maybe I wasn't that exceptional. Maybe I just got lucky. And instead of celebrating your talent, I tried to diminish it. It was the most honest Patricia had ever been with me. For what it's worth, she continued, your algorithm was brilliant. All 17 of those projects I took credit for, they were brilliant. You're going to go far, Kendra. Much farther than I ever did. And you'll do it with integrity I lost somewhere along the way. What will you do now? I asked. I don't know. Consult, maybe. Teach. Figure out how to be the person I thought I was. She looked at me directly. I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know. You earned everything that's coming to you. The award, the promotion, whatever else happens. You earned it. I nodded, accepting her words without absolving her behavior. Some things couldn't be fixed with apologies. As I left her office for the last time, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Satisfaction, yes, but also sadness for what Patricia could have been if she hadn't let bitterness and insecurity poison her leadership. Over the next week, I thought seriously about Thornton's offer. I called my mother in Atlanta, describing both options. Baby, what does your gut tell you? She asked in her warm, familiar voice. The promotion is safe. It's a clear path, a significant raise, a chance to do good work. The director position is risky. It's a brand new role, unproven, a lot of responsibility. Which one scares you more? The director position. Then that's the one you should take. Mama, that doesn't make sense. She laughed. Baby girl, you've been playing it safe your whole life. Safe schools, safe career moves, safe choices. And where has it gotten you? Working for someone who didn't appreciate you, hiding your light, wearing dollar store dresses and feeling ashamed. Maybe it's time to bet on yourself. I thought about her words for days. She was right. I'd always chosen the safe path, the one that minimized risk and disappointment. But safe had also meant small. On Friday, I walked back into Marcus Thornton's office. I'll take the director position, I said. I want to build the Office of Innovation. He grinned. I was hoping you'd say that. When can you start? 2 weeks? I want to transition my current projects properly. Done. Welcome to the executive team, Director Johnson. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. I documented all my ongoing work, trained my replacement, and began planning for the new role. HR announced my promotion internally, and the response was overwhelming. Congratulations from colleagues I barely knew, invitations to coffee and lunch, people wanting to know about the new office. But there was also resentment. Some people, mostly older white men who'd been at the company for decades, made snide comments about diversity promotions and social media fame. One senior director told me directly that I'd been promoted because of my speech, not my qualifications. You're probably right, I told him calmly. My speech revealed my qualifications to people who'd been overlooking them for 3 years. So yes, the speech played a role in making visible what should have been obvious all along. He had no response to that. On my last day in the data analytics department, Jenna organized a small celebration. Cake from the good bakery, coffee from somewhere other than our terrible machine, handmade cards from team members. You're our inspiration, Jenna said, hugging me. Seeing you fight back, speak up, demand better. It's made all of us braver. Diane from accounting, the woman who defended my dress at the gala, gave me a card with a photo inside, me on stage, holding the Catalyst Award, wearing my $15 dress with my head high. "For when you need to remember where you came from and how far you've come," she said. I taped the photo to my new office wall, my actual office, with a door and a window, and a view of the Chicago River. It wasn't corner office big, but it was mine. The Office of Innovation started with just me and an assistant, a recent college grad named Marcus, no relation to the CEO, who had boundless enthusiasm and sharp analytical skills. Together, we began identifying inefficiencies across the company, developing solutions, and building a reputation as the team that actually got things done. Within 6 months, we'd saved Catalyst Industries another $3.7 million through various initiatives. We'd also improved employee retention by 15% by addressing workplace culture issues that had been ignored for years. Marcus Thornton gave us more resources, more autonomy, more trust. The Office of Innovation grew to a team of 8, then 12, then 20. We became known as the place where creative thinkers could make real impact. And through it all, I kept that photo on my wall, a reminder that the dress had never been the point. The point was always what I brought to the room. 8 months after the gala, I found myself in a boutique on Michigan Avenue, being measured for a custom suit. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could now afford designer clothes. My director salary plus bonuses meant money was no longer a source of constant anxiety. But I'd developed a complicated relationship with expensive clothing after that night in November. "How's the fit?" the tailor asked, pinning the jacket's hem. I examined myself in the 3-way mirror. The suit was beautiful. Charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, perfectly tailored to my body. It made me look powerful, polished, executive. "It's perfect," I said. But I still kept that $15 black dress in my closet at home, hung carefully beside my new professional wardrobe. Some reminders were worth preserving. The Office of Innovation had become Catalyst Industries' secret weapon. Companies across Chicago were talking about our work, and I'd been invited to speak at conferences, industry events, even a TED Talk about innovation within corporate structures. My team had grown to 25 people, diverse in every sense. I'd deliberately recruited from state schools alongside Ivy League institutions, from non-traditional backgrounds, people who'd been overlooked by traditional hiring processes. My assistant director was a former teacher who'd transitioned into data science at 43. One of my senior analysts had started as a custodian at Catalyst, taken online coding courses at night, and impressed me so much in an informational interview that I hired her immediately. We were proving that talent existed everywhere if you bothered to look, but success came with complications. In April, 7 months after the gala, I received an email that made my blood pressure spike. "Dear Kendra, I hope this message finds you well. I've been following your career trajectory with great interest. I wonder if you might have time for coffee. There are some opportunities I'd like to discuss. Best regards, Patricia Whitmore." I stared at the email for a full minute, emotions warring inside me. Curiosity, anger, suspicion, a strange sort of pity. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. We met at a cafe in the Loop, neutral territory. Patricia looked different, softer somehow, less armored. She wore simple clothes, minimal makeup, her hair in a natural style rather than the stiff corporate helmet she'd maintained for years. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as we sat down with our coffees. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. I deserve that." She wrapped her hands around her cup, not quite meeting my eyes. "I've been doing a lot of therapy since leaving Catalyst, working through a lot of things. My therapist suggested I make amends to people I'd harmed, but she was clear that amends aren't about making me feel better. They're about acknowledging damage done." "Okay," I said carefully, waiting. "I treated you terribly, Kendra. I diminished your work, took credit for your innovations, tried to make you feel small because it made me feel bigger. I justified it as tough management, as preparing you for the real world. But the truth is, I was threatened by your talent, and took it out on you in ways that were unethical and cruel. She finally looked at me directly. I can't undo the damage. I can't give you back 3 years of proper recognition and support. But I want you to know I see what I did. I understand why it was wrong, and I'm genuinely sorry. The apology was more thorough than I'd expected, more self-aware. I didn't know what to do with it. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You don't owe me forgiveness or absolution or even acknowledgement. I just wanted you to hear me take responsibility. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. What are you doing now? I asked finally. Consulting for small businesses, helping women entrepreneurs build their companies. Trying to be the mentor I should have been all along. It's less money, less prestige, but it feels honest. She smiled ruefully. Turns out public disgrace is a decent teacher if you're willing to learn. I'm glad you're finding your way, I said, and meant it. You were right, you know. That night at the gala, about what you bring to the room mattering more than what you wear. I spent 30 years focused on looking the part, and somewhere along the way, I forgot to actually be good at my job. You've always been good at the job. That's why you're succeeding. We talked for another 20 minutes, carefully navigating the strange space between former adversaries and not quite friends. When we parted, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but a release of anger I'd been carrying. Back at the office, I found my team in an emergency meeting. Marcus, my assistant director, looks stressed. We've got a problem. The CFO wants to cut our budget by 30%. Says we're too expensive for the ROI we're providing. I felt ice form in my stomach. We've saved the company over $10 million in the past 8 months. How is that insufficient ROI? Politics, said Jennifer, one of my senior analysts. I heard through the grapevine that some senior VPs are resentful of our success. We're making their departments look bad by comparison. It was a tale as old as corporate America. Innovators threatening the status quo. Excellence making mediocrity uncomfortable. Set up a meeting with the CFO, I said. And with Marcus Thornton. We're not fighting this through back channels. We're addressing it head on. The meeting happened 2 days later in a conference room with a view of Willis Tower. The CFO, Richard Brennan, was a white man in his 60s who'd been with Catalyst for 20 years. He had the bearing of someone who'd never been seriously challenged. Ms. Johnson, he said, not bothering with pleasantries. Your office has done good work, but the company needs to reallocate resources. A 30% budget cut is necessary. Can you explain the financial justification for cutting a department that's provided a 4,000% return on investment? I asked calmly. The savings you cite are theoretical. They're not theoretical. They're documented, verified, and reflected in our quarterly earnings. My team has identified and eliminated $10.3 million in wasteful spending across 6 departments. Our operating budget is $2.5 million annually. Even a freshman economics student can see that math works. Brennan's face reddened. Your tone is inappropriate. My tone is professional, I interrupted. What's inappropriate is attempting to dismantle a successful department because it makes inefficient departments uncomfortable. Marcus Thornton, who'd been silent until now, leaned forward. Richard, walk me through the actual reasoning here. Because from where I'm sitting, cutting Kendra's budget makes no financial sense. Brennan shifted uncomfortably. There have been concerns raised by senior leadership about the Office of Innovation overstepping its mandate, making other departments look bad, creating internal conflict. Creating accountability, I corrected. When we identified the $4.2 million in redundant software licenses in operations, that wasn't creating conflict. That was doing our job. When we found the procurement process in sales was inflating costs by 40%, that wasn't overstepping. That was saving the company money. Thornton's expression hardened. Richard, who specifically raised these concerns? Brennan hesitated, clearly caught. Several executives felt. Names, Richard. Tom Hendricks in operations, Carol Schneider in sales, David Wu in procurement. I recognized all three names. Senior VPs whose departments had been exposed as inefficient by our audits. The same people who'd been at the gala, who'd watched my speech, who represented the old guard threatened by change. Thornton stood abruptly. "Richard, the budget cut is denied. Kendra's office will not only maintain its current funding, but will receive an additional $500,000 for expansion. And I want a meeting with Hendricks, Schneider, and Wu this afternoon. 3 o'clock. Tell them attendance is mandatory." After Brennan left, looking shaken, Thornton turned to me. "I should have anticipated this. Success always threatens people invested in the status quo. I'm sorry you had to fight this battle." "I'm not," I said. "If I've learned anything this past year, it's that some battles are worth fighting. And I'm getting pretty good at winning them." He smiled. "That you are." That evening, I stayed late at the office, working on a presentation for an upcoming board meeting. Around 8 p.m., my phone rang. A Chicago number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Johnson, this is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Chicago Police Department. I'm calling about an incident that occurred earlier this evening." My heart stopped. "What kind of incident?" "Your mother, Patricia Johnson, was brought to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She's stable, but she was involved in a car accident." "My mother's in Atlanta," I said, confused. "She's here in Chicago, ma'am. She arrived this afternoon, according to her statement. She was heading to your apartment when another vehicle ran a red light. I grabbed my coat and ran. At the hospital, I found my mother in the emergency room, her left arm in a sling, a butterfly bandage on her forehead, but conscious and alert. Mama, I rushed to her bedside. What are you doing in Chicago? Why didn't you tell me you were coming? She smiled weakly. Wanted to surprise you, baby. Thought we could have a weekend together, celebrate your success properly. Didn't plan on the surprise being quite so dramatic. The doctor assured me she'd be fine. A fractured wrist, minor concussion, bruising. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation, but she could go home tomorrow. Home where? She asked. I can't fly back to Atlanta with this wrist for at least a week. Home with me, I said firmly. You'll stay at my apartment. I'll take care of you. And that's how my mother ended up moving to Chicago, at least temporarily. Over the next week, as she recovered, we talked more than we had in years. She told me about her life in Atlanta, the retirement she'd been planning, the volunteer work she wanted to do, how proud she was of everything I'd accomplished. Mama, why didn't you tell me you were struggling? I asked one evening, reviewing her financial situation. Her savings were depleted. Medical bills from a minor surgery earlier in the year had wiped out her emergency fund. Because you were struggling too, baby, sending me money when you could barely afford your own rent. I didn't want to be another burden. You're never a burden, I said fiercely. You're the reason I'm here. Everything I've accomplished, every success I've had, it's because you sacrificed everything to give me opportunities. We both cried then, releasing years of unspoken worry and love. Stay in Chicago, I said impulsively. Move here. I can help you find a place, or you can stay with me until we find something. You shouldn't be in Atlanta working yourself to exhaustion. You should be here, letting me take care of you for once. She was quiet for a long time. You sure about that? I don't want to interfere with your life, your career. Mama, you are my life. The career is just what I do. You're who I am. 3 months later, my mother was settled in a comfortable one-bedroom apartment in my building, furnished with care, her medical bills paid off, her retirement secure. She'd started volunteering at a community center in Pilsen, teaching literacy to adult learners, doing the kind of meaningful work she'd always wanted to do. Watching her thrive, free from financial stress for the first time in her life, felt like closing a circle, receiving the care she'd always given me. Meanwhile, the Office of Innovation continued to grow. The board meeting where I'd presented our findings had gone spectacularly well. We'd been authorized to expand to 50 employees, and given broader mandate to investigate company-wide inefficiencies. The 3 VPs who'd tried to cut our budget? 2 had quietly retired. The third, Carol Schneider, had actually approached me about collaborating on a restructuring of the sales department. I was wrong, she told me bluntly during our first meeting. I was defensive about your audit because it revealed problems I should have caught myself. I'm tired of fighting change. I'd rather be part of making things better. It was a surprising alliance, but an effective one. Together, we redesigned sales operations, improving efficiency by 35%, while actually making the jobs easier for the sales team. That summer, I was invited to speak at a national conference on corporate innovation in New York City. The organizers wanted me to tell the story of the Gala, the dollar store dress, the speech that went viral. I almost declined. I was tired of being the dollar store dress girl, wanted to be known for my work rather than one dramatic moment. But then I received an email from a young woman, a recent college graduate working her first job at a marketing firm in Des Moines. Dear Ms. Johnson, I watched your speech from the Gala probably 50 times. I'm a first-generation college student from a low-income family, and I always feel like I don't belong in corporate America. Everyone around me has connections, expensive clothes, confidence I don't have. Your speech made me realize that's okay, that what I bring to the table is enough. I just wanted to say thank you. Sincerely, Melissa Torres. I read the email 3 times, then called the conference organizers and accepted the speaking invitation. In New York, standing on a stage in front of 2,000 corporate leaders and innovators, I told the story again. But this time I told the whole story, not just the Gala, but what came before and after. Patricia's undermining, the algorithm Patricia tried to hide, the promotion, the budget fight, the ongoing work of building something new. That night at the Palmer House, I wore a $15 dress and felt ashamed, I said. I let other people's judgment make me feel less than, unworthy, like I didn't belong. But here's what I learned. The dress was never the problem. The problem was a culture that values appearance over substance, that mistakes expensive clothes for competence, that makes people feel they need to buy belonging rather than earn it through their work. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Real innovation requires including voices that have been excluded, perspectives that challenge assumptions, people who don't fit the traditional mold. If we only promote people who look like success has always looked, we'll keep getting the same results we've always gotten. But if we're willing to see talent in unexpected packages, in dollar store dresses and non-traditional backgrounds and people who don't have the right connections, that's when transformation happens. The applause was thunderous, but more importantly, afterward I was approached by dozens of people, HR directors wanting to reform their hiring practices, executives wanting to create innovation offices in their companies, young professionals thanking me for giving them courage to be themselves. I exchanged business cards, made connections, planted seeds that would grow into partnerships and collaborations. On the flight back to Chicago, I reflected on how much had changed in 18 months. From a junior analyst in a cubicle to a director with 50 employees and national recognition. From struggling to pay rent to financial security. From isolation to community. But the biggest change was internal. The shift from seeking permission to claiming space. From apologizing for my presence to owning my value. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the photo Diane had given me on stage at the Gala, holding the Catalyst Award, wearing that $15 dress with pride. That woman had been terrified, humiliated, on the verge of leaving. But she'd stayed. She'd fought. She'd spoken her truth. And everything that came after flowed from that single moment of courage. 2 years after the Gala, Catalyst Industries was hosting another innovation gala at the Palmer House Hilton. This time, I wasn't a nervous guest worried about my dress. I was on the planning committee, helping organize an event that had been reimagined from top to bottom. The catering is confirmed, Marcus, my assistant director, said, checking off items on his tablet. And the award recipients have all been notified. We have 12 this year instead of 1. That had been my suggestion, expanding recognition beyond a single person to celebrate innovation across the company. The Catalyst Award I'd won was now one of 12 categories, each honoring different types of excellence. "What about the dress code?" asked Jennifer, who'd been promoted to senior director in the Office of Innovation. I smiled. "Formal attire encouraged but not required. We want people to focus on celebrating achievement, not worrying about whether their clothes are expensive enough." It was a small change, but symbolically important. Several employees had thanked me privately for making the event feel more inclusive. The night of the gala, I arrived in a beautiful gown, custom-made, deep burgundy, elegant, but not ostentatious. My mother accompanied me, wearing a dress we'd shopped for together, her arm fully healed, her face glowing with pride. "Look at you," she said as we entered the grand ballroom. "Running this whole show." Not running it, just helping. There's a difference. But she was right that my role had expanded significantly. In addition to directing the Office of Innovation, I'd been promoted to vice president and given a seat on the executive leadership team. At 34, I was the youngest VP in Catalyst's history and one of 3 Black women in senior leadership. The ballroom looked spectacular, the same gilded ceilings and crystal chandeliers, but the atmosphere felt different. More diverse faces, more accessible energy, more genuine celebration of merit rather than status. I spotted Jenna from my old department, now a senior analyst herself. Diane from accounting was there, retired now, but invited as an honored guest. Even some of the junior analysts I'd mentored over the past 2 years were in attendance. And at table 12, I saw Patricia Whitmore. I'd invited her, despite knowing it might raise eyebrows. She'd continued her redemption arc, building a successful consultancy focused on ethical leadership, and had actually done meaningful work helping other women in tech. We weren't friends exactly, but we'd achieved a careful professional respect. As the evening progressed, awards were presented in various categories: innovation in sustainability, customer service excellence, collaborative leadership, technical achievement. Each winner received their moment of recognition, their accomplishments celebrated. When it came time for the main Catalyst Award, still the evening's signature honor, Marcus Thornton took the stage. 2 years ago, he began, we introduced this award to recognize transformative innovation. The inaugural winner was a young woman whose work had been systematically overlooked by her direct supervisor, whose contributions had been hidden rather than celebrated. That night, she gave a speech that changed this company. I felt eyes turn toward me, but Thornton continued. Kendra Johnson's words challenged us to examine our culture, our values, our assumptions about who belongs and who doesn't. In the 2 years since, we've reformed our hiring practices, expanded our diversity initiatives, created new pathways for advancement, and built an innovation infrastructure that's become industry-leading. We're a better company because one woman had the courage to speak truth. He paused, his expression warm. Tonight's Catalyst Award winner exemplifies those same qualities: courage, innovation, persistence in the face of obstacles. This person identified a critical gap in our employee wellness programs, designed a comprehensive mental health initiative, and implemented it across the company despite significant institutional resistance. The result? Our employee satisfaction scores are up 28%. Our retention has improved by 19%, and we've created a model that other companies are now trying to replicate. I leaned forward, curious about who had done this work. Please join me in congratulating this year's Catalyst Award winner, Dr. Monica Reeves. A Black woman in her late 40s stood from a table near the back, looking shocked. She was from HR, I knew, but I wasn't familiar with her specific work. As Dr. Reeves made her way to the stage, I watched her face. The same mixture of disbelief and pride I'd felt 2 years ago. She wore a simple navy dress, tasteful jewelry, sensible heels. She looked like someone who'd been working hard without seeking spotlight. Thornton presented her with the Crystal Award, then stepped back to let her speak. "Thank you," she said, her voice wavering slightly. I don't know what to say. When I proposed the mental health initiative 2 years ago, I was told it was too expensive, too controversial, that employees wouldn't use it. I almost gave up. She paused, gathering composure. But then I watched Kendra Johnson's speech from the 2023 Gala, and I heard her say that what we bring to the room matters more than anything else, that our work matters even when people try to dismiss it, that we have to keep fighting for what's right. Dr. Reeves looked directly at me across the ballroom. Your courage gave me courage. Your persistence taught me to persist. Your willingness to speak uncomfortable truths made me brave enough to do the same. So thank you, Kendra. This award is as much yours as it is mine. The ballroom erupted in applause, and I felt tears stream down my face. My mother squeezed my hand, and around me, people were standing, the ovation building and building. This was the legacy, not my own success, but the way that success had created space for others. The way speaking up had given others permission to speak. The way one moment of courage had rippled outward, changing culture in ways I'd never imagined. After the formal program ended, Dr. Reeves found me at my table. I meant every word, she said. Your speech literally changed my career trajectory. Before that night, I was ready to leave Catalyst, convinced that no one cared about employee wellness. But you showed me that speaking up could create change. You did the hard work, I told her. I just broke some ice. You did more than that. You showed all of us what's possible. Later in the evening, I stepped outside onto the terrace overlooking Grant Park, needing a moment of quiet. The November air was cold but invigorating. The city spread out before me in glittering lights. Mind if I join you? I turned to find Marcus Thornton, still in his tuxedo, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Not at all. I accepted one of the glasses. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city. I've been thinking about succession planning, he said finally. I'm 62, not ready to retire yet, but I need to start thinking about the company's future leadership. That's wise, I said, unsure where this was going. I look at you, Kendra, and I see someone who embodies everything I wanted Catalyst to be. Innovative, yes. Profitable, absolutely. But also ethical, inclusive, willing to challenge assumptions and fight for what's right. Those are the qualities the next generation of leadership needs. I appreciate that. I'm not just complimenting you. I'm telling you that when I do step down, 5 years, maybe 7, I want you to seriously consider running for CEO. I nearly dropped my champagne. CEO? Marcus, I'm 34. I've been a VP for less than a year. And in that year, you've transformed this company more than most executives do in entire careers. Age doesn't determine readiness. Impact does. Vision does. The willingness to lead even when it's uncomfortable does. That's a lot to process. I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm asking you to think about it, to prepare yourself, to see yourself as capable of that level of leadership. After he left, I stayed on the terrace, my mind spinning with possibility. CEO of Catalyst Industries. It seemed impossible, audacious, completely outside the trajectory I'd imagined for myself. But then again, 2 years ago, I'd been a junior analyst afraid to attend a gala in a dollar store dress. Now I was a VP, a keynote speaker, a mentor to dozens of rising professionals. Maybe impossible was just another barrier waiting to be broken. I pulled out my phone and texted my mother, who was back at the table. I need to tell you something. Meet me in the lobby in 10 minutes? She appeared quickly, concern on her face. Everything okay, baby? More than okay. Let's take a walk. We strolled through the Palmer House lobby, the same path I'd walked 2 years ago in my $15 dress, feeling ashamed and out of place. Marcus wants me to consider becoming CEO someday, I told her. Not now, but in 5 or 7 years. He wants me to prepare for it, to see myself as capable of running the entire company. My mother stopped walking, staring at me with tears in her eyes. "And? What did you say?" I said I'd think about it. "Mama, is that crazy? Am I in over my head?" She took both my hands in hers, looking at me with fierce love. "Kendra Michelle Johnson, listen to me. When you were 5 years old, you told me you were going to build important things someday. I asked what kind of things, and you said, things that help people, things that matter. You've been working toward that goal your entire life. But CEO is just a title. What matters is what you do with it. And I know what you'd do. You'd continue building systems that work for everyone, not just the privileged few. You'd create opportunities for people who've been overlooked. You'd use that power to make real change. That's not crazy, baby. That's exactly what you're meant to do." We hugged there in the Palmer House lobby, surrounded by echoes of that night 2 years ago when everything changed. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Good. That means it matters. That means you're stretching into something bigger than you've been before. Fear isn't a reason to say no. It's a reason to say yes and be brave anyway." The following months were a blur of activity. The Office of Innovation continued expanding. We now had 70 employees across multiple specialties, working on everything from sustainability initiatives to workflow optimization to cultural change. I launched a mentorship program, personally working with 20 young professionals from underrepresented backgrounds, helping them navigate corporate politics, develop their skills, and advocate for themselves. I started taking executive leadership courses, preparing myself for higher levels of responsibility. I read voraciously, books on management, leadership, innovation, systems thinking. And I stayed connected to my roots. I kept that $15 dress in my closet, a reminder of where I'd come from. I volunteered at the community center where my mother taught literacy classes. I made time for Jenna and other friends who'd supported me from the beginning. 1 year after that second gala, I received an invitation to speak at my alma mater, Northwestern. They wanted me to give the commencement address for the graduate business school. Standing on that stage, looking at hundreds of students about to enter the professional world, I thought carefully about what to say. "When I graduated from this program 9 years ago," I began, "I had a lot of certainty about what success would look like. A job at a prestigious company, a steady climb up the corporate ladder, financial security, respect. And I achieved those things, eventually. But the path looked nothing like I expected. I told them about Patricia, about the gala, about the dollar store dress, and the speech that went viral. Success isn't a straight line. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes humiliating. You'll work for people who don't appreciate you. You'll be overlooked and underestimated. You'll face moments where you question whether you belong." I paused, making eye contact with students throughout the auditorium. Black faces, brown faces, white faces, Asian faces, every background represented. "Here's what I want you to know. You belong anywhere your talent and hard work take you. Not because of your credentials or your clothes or your connections, but because of what you contribute. Focus on being excellent at what you do. Be brave enough to speak up when you see problems. And remember that sometimes your biggest career moments will come from your most vulnerable ones. The dress I wore to that gala cost $15, but what I brought to that room, my intelligence, my work, my willingness to tell an uncomfortable truth, that was priceless. That's what changed everything." The applause was thunderous, and afterward, dozens of students wanted to talk, to ask questions, to share their own fears about entering the corporate world. A young Black woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "I'm starting at a consulting firm next month, and I'm terrified. I don't have the right background, the right clothes, the right anything, but your story gives me hope." I took her hands in mine. "Listen to me. You are exactly what you need to be. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And when you doubt yourself, because you will, we all do, Remember that excellence speaks louder than any outfit, any pedigree, any expectation. Focus on the work. Everything else follows. Driving home that evening, I thought about the arc of the past 3 years. From cubicle to corner office. From being undermined to mentoring others. From shame about a dollar store dress to giving commencement addresses. But the most important change was internal. The shift from seeking validation to knowing my worth, from hoping someone would recognize my value to confidently asserting it. My phone rang. Marcus Thornton. Kendra, I wanted to give you advance notice. The board meeting next month. I'm recommending you for promotion to Senior Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer. It's a newly created position that would put you in the C-suite, reporting directly to me, with oversight of not just your office, but company-wide innovation strategy. Another leap. Another expansion of responsibility and possibility. I accept, I said without hesitation. Don't you want to think about it? I've been thinking about it for 3 years. Every challenge I've faced, every obstacle I've overcome, every moment I've had to be brave. They were all preparing me for this. I'm ready. Yes, he said warmly. You are. 3 months later, I moved into my new office, corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of Lake Michigan that still took my breath away. My mother helped me decorate, hanging that photo from the gala, me on stage in my $15 dress, in a prominent place on the wall. You sure you want that there? She asked. Your fancy executive colleagues might think it's strange. Let them think whatever they want, I said. That photo represents the most important moment of my career, the moment I stopped apologizing for who I was and started owning my value. Everyone who walks into this office needs to see it. On my first day as Chief Innovation Officer, I held an all-hands meeting with the now 100-person innovation team. We've accomplished incredible things, I told them. Saved the company over $50 million, improved employee satisfaction by 40%, created pathways for advancement that didn't exist before. But our work isn't done. I pulled up a slide showing the demographic breakdown of Catalyst's leadership. We've made progress on diversity and inclusion, but look at these numbers. Senior leadership is still overwhelmingly white and male. Middle management is getting more diverse, but slowly. And throughout the company, people from underrepresented backgrounds still face barriers to advancement. Our job, the Office of Innovation, is to continue identifying and dismantling those barriers. Not just because it's the right thing to do, though it is, but because diverse teams are more innovative, more creative, more effective. When we only hear from people who've always had a seat at the table, we miss perspectives that could transform our business. I looked at my team, diverse in age, race, gender, background, experience. Each of you is here because you bring something unique, a perspective others don't have, a skill set we needed, a willingness to challenge assumptions. Together, we're proving that innovation isn't about following the old playbook. It's about writing a new one. The applause was heartfelt, and I knew we were aligned on the mission. That evening, I had dinner with Patricia Whitmore. Our quarterly check-in had become something of a tradition. Chief Innovation Officer, she said, raising her glass. You've come a long way from that cubicle in data analytics. We both have, I replied. She nodded thoughtfully. You know, I tell your story when I train new managers. Not to shame myself, though that's part of it, but to illustrate how easily talent can be overlooked when we're focused on the wrong things. How much damage one insecure manager can do. How important it is to recognize and nurture excellence rather than feel threatened by it. That takes courage to admit. Less courage than it took for you to give that speech in a dollar store dress, she said. You showed me what real bravery looks like. Speaking truth even when it's uncomfortable. Standing up for yourself even when it's risky. That's leadership, Kendra. That's why you're going to be CEO someday. You sound very confident about that. I am. Because I've watched you for 3 years now, and I've seen how you lead. With integrity, with vision, with genuine concern for people's well-being. Those qualities are rare at the executive level. Don't lose them as you climb higher. It was good advice, and I took it seriously. 5 years after the gala that changed everything, Marcus Thornton announced his retirement. The search for his replacement was extensive. The board considered internal and external candidates, conducting months of interviews and evaluation. I was one of 3 finalists, along with 2 external candidates from Fortune 100 companies. Both had more years of experience, more traditional backgrounds, more of the conventional markers of CEO material. The final interview was with the full board of directors, 15 people representing diverse industries and perspectives. They asked about my vision for Catalyst, my leadership philosophy, my plans for growth and innovation. "What makes you different from the other candidates?" the board chair asked. I thought about that question carefully, then answered honestly. I know what it's like to be underestimated, to have my contributions dismissed, to be told I don't belong. And I know what it takes to prove people wrong, not through bravado or aggression, but through excellent work, persistent effort, and a willingness to speak uncomfortable truths. I leaned forward, passionate now. Catalyst Industries is at a crossroads. We can continue being good, profitable, respected, steady, or we can become great, transformative, innovative, a company that doesn't just talk about diversity and inclusion, but actually lives those values at every level. I've spent 5 years building the systems and culture that make greatness possible. I'm ready to scale that across the entire organization. You're 39 years old, one board member said. Some would say that's too young for this level of responsibility. I'm 39, with 15 years of experience driving change in this company. I've been underestimated my entire career because of my age, my race, my gender, my background. Every time, I've responded by exceeding expectations. I'm not asking you to take a chance on an unproven quantity. I'm asking you to recognize the value I've already demonstrated and trust me to amplify it at a larger scale. The announcement came 3 weeks later. I was named CEO of Catalyst Industries, effective January 1st. The press coverage was extensive. Youngest CEO in the company's history, 3rd Black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company, a Cinderella story of rising from junior analyst to chief executive. But the story I kept coming back to wasn't about corporate success or breaking barriers. It was simpler and more profound. It was about a woman who wore a $15 dress to a gala, who felt ashamed and diminished, who considered leaving. But she stayed. She spoke. She fought for her value even when no one else would. And that single moment of courage changed everything. Not just for her, but for everyone who came after. On my first day as CEO, I hung that photo from the gala in my new office, the biggest office, with the best view, the most power. I hung it where every person who walked through my door would see it. A reminder that excellence comes in unexpected packages, that courage matters more than credentials, that what you bring to the room will always matter more than what you wear, and that sometimes the dress that changes everything costs exactly $15.